What happens when a fearless black maid refuses to bow to a mafia boss's cruel fiancé? In the heart of Busan's most powerful estate, Tanya Mbala does the unthinkable. She slaps back. One moment of courage shatters years of fear and ignites a dangerous love that threatens to destroy Korea's most feared criminal alliance. When dignity collides with power, when respect challenges dominance, everything changes. This is a story of forbidden love, ruthless ambition, and the woman who dared to stand when everyone else knelt. Will love triumph over tradition, or will the mafia world crush them both? Watch until the very end to find out. Hello fam, welcome back to Afro-Korean Heartbeat Stories. Subscribe now and join us on this unforgettable journey. Don't forget to tell us where you're watching from, and thank you so much for your immense support. The slap came without warning. Tanya Mbala's head snapped to the side, the sharp crack of palm against cheek reverberating through the marble entrance hall of the Kang estate. Pain bloomed across her face, hot and immediate. For a moment, everything went silent. The 15 staff members lining the walls held their breath. The afternoon sun streaming through the massive windows seemed to freeze in place. Seo Warren stood before her, hand still raised, her beautiful face twisted with satisfaction and rage. "That's what happens when you disrespect me in my own home," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. Tanya's cheek burned. She could taste blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of humiliation, of degrading tasks, of public insults. 3 weeks of watching this woman terrorize everyone in the household while pretending to be the perfect, elegant fiancé of Busan's most powerful man. Something inside Tanya, something that had been bending under the weight of Warren's cruelty, finally snapped. Her hand moved before her mind could catch up. The sound of Tanya's palm connecting with Warren's cheek was louder than the first slap. Sharper. More final. The world stopped. Warren stumbled backward, her hand flying to her face, her eyes wide with shock. A red mark began to bloom across her pale skin. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Around them, Tanya heard the collective gasp of the staff, the sharp intake of breath that spoke of absolute horror. No one touched Seo Warren. No one defied her. No one dared. Until now. "I am not your property," Tanya said, her voice quiet but clear in the silence. "I am not your punching bag. I am a human being, and you will not put your hands on me again." Warren's shock transformed into pure fury. Her face flushed crimson, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "How dare you?" she shrieked, her composed facade completely shattered. "Do you know who I am? Do you know where you are?" "I know exactly where I am," Tanya replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "I'm in a house where fear has been mistaken for respect for far too long." "You're finished." Warren's voice rose to a scream. "I'll have you thrown out onto the street. I'll make sure you never work again. What's going on here?" The voice was quiet, almost soft, but it cut through Warren's tirade like a knife through silk. Every person in the hall immediately straightened, their faces going pale. Tanya turned toward the source of the voice, her heart suddenly pounding. Kang Mu-yeol stood at the entrance to the hall, still wearing his dark suit from whatever business had occupied his morning. He was tall, his presence commanding despite the gentleness of his voice. His handsome face was expressionless, but his dark eyes were sharp, taking in every detail of the scene before him. The red marks on both women's faces, Warren's disheveled fury, Tanya's steady defiance, the terrified staff frozen against the walls. "Mu-yeol!" Warren's voice immediately shifted, becoming softer, almost pleading. She rushed toward him, her hand still pressed to her cheek. "Thank God you're here. This woman, this maid, she attacked me. She struck me in front of everyone. Muil's eyes moved from Warren to Tanya. Their gazes met, and Tanya felt something pass between them, some wordless communication she couldn't quite name. She had seen him around the estate over the past 3 weeks, always from a distance. He was nothing like his fiancée. Where Warren ruled through fear and cruelty, Muil commanded through quiet authority. He spoke to his staff with respect, never raised his voice, and yet everyone obeyed him instantly. Is that true? He asked Tanya directly. Did you strike Miss Seo? Tanya could have lied. She could have denied it, played the victim, thrown herself on his mercy. That's what everyone expected. That's what any sane person would do when confronted by the head of Busan's most powerful crime family. Instead, she lifted her chin. Yes, sir. I did. A murmur rippled through the staff. Warren's eyes gleamed with triumph. After she struck me first, Tanya continued, her voice steady. I will not be physically assaulted by anyone, regardless of their position in this household. The triumph in Warren's eyes flickered. She's lying. Is she? Muil's question was directed at the staff. His gaze swept across the 15 people lining the walls. Did anyone see what happened? No one moved. No one spoke. Tanya could see the fear in their eyes, the desperate desire to become invisible. They had all seen Warren strike first, but testifying to that would mean becoming her next target. In this house, survival meant silence. Well, Warren's voice turned sharp. Speak up. Tell him what happened. Still, no one moved. That's enough, Muil said quietly. He turned to Warren. Show me your hand. What? Your right hand. Show it to me. Confused but compliant, Warren extended her hand. Muil examined it briefly, then looked at Tanya's face, at the red mark on her left cheek. Then he looked at his fiancée's face, at the matching mark on her right cheek. The angle is consistent with you striking first with your right hand, he said calmly, as if discussing the weather. And Miss Mbala responding in kind. The force appears similar, the marks almost identical in size and shape. Warren's mouth fell open. You can't possibly believe. I believe the evidence. Muil's voice remained quiet, but something in his tone made Warren fall silent. And I believe that in this household, no one has the right to strike another person, regardless of their position. She's a maid. Warren sputtered. She's nothing. She's a human being, Muil interrupted, his voice harder now. And she deserves the same respect as anyone else under this roof. The silence that followed was deafening. Tanya watched as emotions warred across Warren's face. Shock, fury, humiliation, and something that looked almost like fear. You're taking her side? Warren's voice dropped to a whisper. Over mine? I'm not taking sides, Muil replied. I'm stating facts. You struck her first. She defended herself. If you want to live in this house, you will learn that violence is not how we solve problems here. Not how we. Warren let out a harsh laugh. Muil, do you hear yourself? You're a crime lord. Violence is your business. My business is separate from my home, he said coldly. In this house, everyone is treated with dignity, including the staff, especially the staff. Warren's face had gone from red to white. Your mother will hear about this. I'm sure she will. Muil's expression didn't change. He turned to Tanya. Miss Mbala, are you injured? The question caught Tanya off guard. In 3 weeks, no one had asked after her well-being. No one had cared whether she was hurt or tired or struggling. And now the master of the house, the man everyone feared, was asking if she was all right. I'm fine, sir, she managed. Good. He glanced at the mark on her cheek, and something flickered in his eyes. Anger, perhaps. Or regret. You may return to your duties. And Miss Mbala. Yes, sir. In this house, you have the right to defend yourself. Always. Before Tanya could respond, Muyil turned back to his fiancée. Warren, we need to talk. In private. He walked toward the west wing, not looking back to see if she followed. For a moment, Warren stood frozen, her face a mask of humiliation and rage. Then she turned to Tanya, and the look in her eyes was pure venom. This isn't over, she whispered, low enough that only Tanya could hear. Not even close. Then she spun on her heel and followed Muyil, her designer heels clicking angrily against the marble. As soon as they disappeared around the corner, the hall erupted into whispered chaos. The staff members crowded around Tanya, their faces a mixture of awe and terror. Are you insane? Hissed Mrs. Park, the head housekeeper, a woman in her 50s who had worked for the Kang family for 20 years. Do you have any idea what you've just done? She slapped me, Tanya said simply. Was I supposed to just accept that? Yes. Mrs. Park grabbed Tanya's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Yes, you were. We all do. That's how we survive here. I didn't come to Korea to survive, Tanya replied. I came to live. A young maid named Ji-won stared at her with wide eyes. But Miss Seo, she'll destroy you for this. She destroys everyone who crosses her. Then she can try. Tanya gently extracted her arm from Mrs. Park's grip. But I won't spend another day pretending to be less than what I am to make someone else feel powerful. You don't understand, whispered Mr. Choi, the elderly butler who had served 3 generations of kings. This household, this family, they're not like normal people. The rules are different here. Respect isn't different anywhere, Tanya said. And neither is dignity. She walked away from the group, heading back toward the staff quarters, her heart pounding. Her cheeks still stung, but that wasn't what made her hands tremble. She had just slapped the fiancé of a mafia boss. She had defied the woman who ruled this house through terror. She had probably just signed her own death warrant. But as she replayed the moment in her mind, the look on Warren's face when Tanya's hand connected with her cheek, she couldn't find it in herself to regret it. Some lines couldn't be crossed. Some indignities couldn't be accepted. Even if standing up for yourself meant losing everything. In the study on the west wing, Muyil closed the door behind Warren and moved to stand behind his desk. He didn't sit, didn't offer her a seat. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. You're angry, Warren finally said, her voice carefully controlled now. I understand. The situation was unfortunate. Unfortunate, Muyil repeated, his tone flat. That's your word for it? She was insubordinate. She's been here 3 weeks, Muyil interrupted. 3 weeks, Warren. In that time, I've watched you systematically try to break her. The impossible tasks, the public humiliations, the constant criticisms. I've watched and I've said nothing because I wanted to see if she would bend. If she would break. Warren's eyes narrowed. And? She didn't. Something that might have been admiration flickered across Muyil's face. Everyone else in this house lives in fear of you. They flinch when you enter a room. They scramble to obey your every whim, no matter how unreasonable. But not her. Is that what you want? Warren's voice turned sharp. Someone who doesn't respect your authority? Who defies the natural order of this household? I want people who respect me because they choose to, not because they're terrified of what I'll do to them if they don't. Muyil's voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. There's a difference between fear and respect, Warren. Our marriage will work much better if you learn that difference. Our marriage, Warren repeated, moving closer to him. That's what this is about, isn't it? Our families spent months negotiating this alliance. My father's connections in Seoul, your family's power in Busan. This marriage isn't about love, Muyil. It's about empire building. I'm aware. Then why are you jeopardizing it over a maid? She was close to him now, her voice dropping to something almost seductive. She's nobody. She means nothing. But I'm going to be your wife. The mother of your children. The woman standing beside you when you rule this entire country. If you're going to stand beside me, Muyil said, stepping back from her, then you need to understand something. I don't rule through cruelty. I rule through loyalty. People follow me because they believe in me, not because they're afraid of me. Can you say the same? Warren's seductive facade cracked. You're defending her. A black maid who's been here less than a month. Over me. Your fiancé. I'm defending a principle, Muyil corrected. One that apparently needs defending in my own home. Your mother won't see it that way. My mother doesn't run this house. I do. Does she know that? Warren's smile was cold. Because from where I'm standing, you seem to forget that you're not just the master of this estate. You're the heir to an empire, Muyil. And empires aren't built on respecting the feelings of servants. Get out, Muyil said quietly. What? Get out of my study. Now, before I say something we'll both regret. For a long moment, Warren stared at him, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. Then she turned and walked to the door, her movements rigid with anger. But before she left, she looked back at him. This isn't about the maid anymore, she said softly. This is about whether you're strong enough to be the man your family needs you to be. Strong enough to rule. Strong enough to do what's necessary, even when it's cruel. If being strong means being cruel, Muyil replied, then I don't want that kind of strength. Warren's laugh was bitter. Then you're weaker than I thought. And weak men don't survive in our world. She left, closing the door with exaggerated gentleness that was somehow more threatening than a slam. Alone in his study, Muyil moved to the window overlooking the grounds. From here, he could see the garden where the staff sometimes took their breaks, the long driveway leading to the main gate, the wall that separated his estate from the city beyond. His phone buzzed. A text from his cousin and lieutenant, Baek Juntae, heard there was excitement at the house. Everything okay? News traveled fast in his organization. Muyil typed back, handled. But was it handled? He had defended Tanya publicly, had essentially taken her side over his fiancée's. In doing so, he had created a crack in the foundation of his engagement, had given Warren ammunition against him, had probably set in motion events he couldn't yet foresee. And the worst part? He didn't regret it. There was something about Tanya Mbala that had caught his attention from the first day she arrived. Not her beauty, though she was beautiful. Not her foreignness, though that certainly made her stand out in his thoroughly Korean household. It was something else. Something in the way she carried herself, the quiet dignity in her movements, the refusal to make herself smaller even when everyone around her was screaming at her to bend. He had been watching her for 3 weeks, he realized. Watching as Warren tried to break her. Watching as she endured humiliation after humiliation with grace. Watching and doing nothing, telling himself he was curious to see how long she would last. But that wasn't entirely true, was it? The truth was, he had been waiting. Waiting to see if she would fight back. Waiting to see if someone in his house would finally stand up to the tyrant he was engaged to marry. Waiting for an excuse to intervene. And today, Tanya had given him that excuse. Muyil pulled out his phone again and dialed his head of security. I want protection on Tanya Mbala. Discreet, but constant. If anyone attempts to harm her or force her to leave the estate, I want to know immediately. Yes, sir. May I ask why? She made an enemy today, Muyil said. A powerful one. I want to make sure she stays safe. After he hung up, he stood at the window for a long time, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Somewhere in this house, Warren was plotting revenge. Somewhere else, Tanya was probably wondering if she'd just made the worst mistake of her life. And Muyil was caught between them, knowing that the slap heard around the estate had changed something fundamental. The careful balance he had maintained, the delicate peace between duty and desire, between obligation and integrity, it was all crumbling. And he wasn't entirely sure he wanted to stop it. That evening, Tanya sat in the small room she shared with Ji-won, pressing a cold cloth against her cheek. The mark had faded to a dull red, but it still throbbed. Ji-won sat on her own bed, watching Tanya with a mixture of admiration and fear. "You should leave," Ji-won said quietly. "Tonight. Before Miss Seo does something worse." "I'm not running," Tanya replied. "This isn't about pride. This is about survival." Ji-won's voice rose, then immediately dropped to a whisper. "You don't understand what she's capable of. Last year, a maid accidentally broke one of Miss Seo's vases. Miss Seo had her fired, then made sure she couldn't get work anywhere in Busan. The woman had to move back to her village in disgrace. Her whole family was shamed." "That's horrible," Tanya said. "But it's also not my problem. It will be your problem when she does it to you." Tanya lowered the cloth and looked at her roommate. "Ji-won, how long have you worked here?" 2 years. "And in those 2 years, have you ever stood up to her? Ever told her no? Ever defended yourself?" Ji-won looked away. "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple," Tanya said gently. "Every day you accept her cruelty, you teach her that it's acceptable. Every time you bow your head and say nothing, you give her more power." "Easy for you to say," Ji-won muttered. "You can leave Korea anytime. This is my country. My home. I have to live here long after you're gone." The words stung, partly because they were true. Tanya had come to Korea on a 2-year work visa, drawn by the promise of better wages than she could find back home. Her plan had been simple: work hard, save money, send some back to her family, and return home with enough to start her own business. She hadn't planned on encountering someone like Seo Warren. Hadn't planned on working in a mafia household. Hadn't planned on any of this. But life rarely went according to plan. "You're right," Tanya admitted. "I can leave. But while I'm here, I won't live on my knees. Not for anyone." A knock on the door made them both jump. Ji-won rushed to open it, her face going pale when she saw who stood there. Mrs. Park entered, her expression grim. "Miss Mbala, Mr. Kong wants to see you." Tanya's heart sank. "When?" "Now." "In his study." Ji-won grabbed Tanya's arm. "Don't go. It's a trap." Miss Seo probably convinced him to. "It's fine," Tanya said, though her stomach churned with anxiety. She stood, smoothed down her uniform, and followed Mrs. Park out of the room. The walk to Moo Yeol's study felt endless. Servants they passed stopped and stared, their faces full of pity and morbid curiosity. No doubt rumors of her imminent firing, or worse, were already spreading through the household. By morning, everyone would know what happened to the maid who dared to strike back. Mrs. Park stopped outside the study door. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "what you did today, it was brave. Stupid, but brave." "Is there a difference?" Tanya asked. "In this house?" "Not usually." Mrs. Park knocked, announced Tanya, and left her at the threshold. Tanya took a deep breath and entered. The study was elegant and understated, with dark wood furniture and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Moo Yeol stood by the window, his back to the door. For a long moment, he didn't turn around, and Tanya stood there, uncertain whether to speak or wait. "Close the door," he finally said. Tanya obeyed, her heart hammering. Was this where he told her to pack her things? Where he explained that despite his earlier defense, she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed? "How's your face?" he asked, still not turning. The question surprised her. "It's fine, sir." "Don't lie to me." "It hurts," Tanya admitted. "But I've had worse." That made him turn. His dark eyes studied her face, and she forced herself not to look away. Up close, he was even more striking than she had realized. There was something in his features, a combination of strength and gentleness, that made it hard to reconcile him with the stories she had heard about the Kang family's business. "You've had worse," he repeated. "Should I be concerned about that?" "Just life experience, sir. Nothing to worry about." "Miss Mbala, I called you here because I want to make something clear." He moved closer, and Tanya's breath caught. What happened today cannot happen again. Here it comes, she thought. The ultimatum. The threat. The reminder of who held the power. "If someone strikes you again," he continued, "don't strike back. Come to me immediately. I will handle it." Tanya blinked. "Sir, you were justified in defending yourself," Muyil said. "I want you to understand that. But next time, let me handle it. I won't have violence in my home from anyone. That includes my fiancé. You're not firing me? Why would I fire you for defending yourself?" He looked genuinely puzzled. Because I hit your fiancé. Because I caused a scene. Because you refuse to be a victim?" Muyil shook his head. "Miss Mbala, I employ people who work here because they need jobs, not because I enjoy exercising power over them. You do good work. You're respectful to everyone except those who disrespect you first, and you have more backbone than most of my business associates. Why would I fire you?" Tanya felt something loosen in her chest, some tight knot of fear she hadn't realized she was carrying. "Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. You earned your place here." He moved back to his desk, picked up a piece of paper. "However, I am making some changes to your position." The fear returned. "Changes? You'll no longer report to Miss Seo. You'll report directly to Mrs. Park, and through her to me. Your duties will focus on the main house maintenance and library care. You'll have no direct interaction with my fiancé unless absolutely necessary." "Sir, with respect, doesn't that just look like you're protecting me?" "I am protecting you," Muyil said simply. "Miss Seo is angry, and when she's angry, she's dangerous. Until she calms down, I'm keeping you out of her reach." "I can handle." "I know you can handle yourself," he interrupted. "You proved that today. But you shouldn't have to. Not in my house." There was something in his voice, some undercurrent of emotion that made Tanya look at him more closely. His face was composed, but his eyes, there was a weariness there. A sadness, maybe. Or resignation. "May I speak freely, sir?" she asked. "Always." "Why are you marrying her?" The question hung in the air between them. For a moment, Muyil's composed facade cracked, and she saw something raw beneath it. Then he smiled, but it was a smile without humor. "That's a complicated question with a simple answer," he said. "Because it's what's expected of me. Because our families have been planning this alliance for years. Because in my world, love is a luxury and duty is everything." "That sounds lonely." "It is," he admitted. Then, as if realizing he had said too much, he straightened. "That will be all, Miss Mbala. Mrs. Park will brief you on your new duties tomorrow morning." Tanya nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. "Miss Mbala." "Yes, sir." "What you did today, standing up for yourself, refusing to be diminished." He paused. "Don't lose that. No matter what happens, don't let anyone make you smaller than you are." Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Recognition. A sense that they were both trapped in situations not entirely of their own making, both trying to maintain dignity in a world that seemed designed to strip it away. "I won't, sir," Tanya promised. "You have my word." After she left, Muyil stood alone in his study, staring at the closed door. He had meant what he said. Tanya Mbala had something rare in his world, genuine courage. Not the kind born of stupidity or recklessness, but the kind that came from knowing your own worth and refusing to compromise it. It was admirable. It was dangerous. And it was exactly what he needed to see. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Juntae. Mother knows. She's coming tomorrow. Prepare yourself. Muyil sighed. Of course she knew. Madame Kong Xianjia had spies everywhere, and what had happened today was too juicy not to reach her ears immediately. His mother, the woman who had held the Kang Empire together after his father's death, who had taught him everything about power and control, who believed that mercy was weakness and compassion was liability. She was going to be furious. Tomorrow was going to be a very long day. Across the estate, in the luxurious guest wing that would eventually become her permanent quarters, Warren sat at her vanity, staring at the red mark on her cheek. It had faded somewhat, but it was still visible. Still proof of her humiliation. Her phone rang. Her father. I heard about the incident. Xiao Dezheng's voice was cold. Care to explain how you let a maid strike you in front of witnesses? It was handled, father. Was it? Because from what I'm hearing, your fiancé took the maid's side. In front of his entire staff. Do you understand what that means? Warren's hand tightened around her phone. It was a momentary lapse. Muyil was surprised. But I'll make him understand. You'll make him understand? Her father's laugh was harsh. You stupid girl. You were supposed to have him wrapped around your finger by now. Instead, you're fighting with servants and losing. I'm not losing. Then why does everyone seem to think Kong Muyil just chose a black maid over his future wife? The words hit like a physical blow. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Explain it to me, Warren. Explain how this marriage alliance, which took months to negotiate, which is supposed to unite two of the most powerful families in Korea, is already showing cracks before you've even walked down the aisle. I'll fix it, Warren said desperately. I'll make her disappear. I'll make sure everyone knows I'm in control here. You'll do nothing without my approval, her father snapped. Nothing. The last thing we need is for you to escalate this into something that gives Muyil a reason to break the engagement. Do you understand me? Yes, father. Madame Kong is arriving tomorrow. She'll want answers. Make sure you have good ones. He hung up without saying goodbye. Warren stared at her reflection, at the mark on her face that felt like a brand of shame. Her father was right. She had underestimated the situation. Had underestimated Tanyambala. But she wouldn't make that mistake again. If Muyil wanted to protect the maid, fine. Let him. Protection only worked when you could see the threat coming. And Warren had learned long ago that the best attacks were the ones no one saw coming. She picked up her phone and sent a text to her mother's assistant, a woman who had connections throughout Busan's service industry. I need information on Tanyambala. Everything. Family, history, why she came to Korea, weaknesses. I need it by tomorrow morning. The response came quickly. Consider it done. Warren smiled at her reflection. Let Muyil play the noble protector. Let the staff whisper about the brave maid who dared to fight back. It didn't matter. Because Warren knew something they didn't. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had vulnerabilities. Everyone had something they were afraid to lose. And once she found Tanya's weakness, the maid who thought she was so strong would discover just how fragile courage could be. The next morning arrived with the weight of an impending storm. Tanya woke early, her cheek still tender from yesterday's confrontation. Jiwon's bed was already empty, her roommate having left for the early kitchen shift. Tanya dressed quickly in her uniform, preparing herself for whatever the day would bring. Mrs. Park found her in the servants' corridor. Good, you're up. Come with me. I'll show you your new duties. As they walked, Mrs. Park spoke in a low voice. Last night, 3 maids quit. Just packed their things and left. They said they didn't want to be here when Miss Seo takes revenge. Revenge for what? She hit me first. In their minds, you're the one who escalated it. You're the one who hit back. Mrs. Park sighed. They're scared, Miss Mbala. And in this house, Scared people run. Then they're smarter than me, Tanya muttered. Or weaker, Mrs. Park said, surprising her. Mr. King has given specific instructions. You're to have no contact with Miss Seo. If she tries to speak to you, you're to come find me immediately. And under no circumstances are you to be alone in any room with her. He really thinks she'll try something? Mrs. Park gave her a look that said the question was naive. Miss Seo doesn't forgive, and she doesn't forget. You humiliated her yesterday, Miss Mbala. In front of witnesses. In front of Mr. Kong. Women like her, they don't move on from that. They reached the library, a magnificent room with 2 stories of books, comfortable reading chairs, and windows overlooking the gardens. This will be your primary responsibility now, Mrs. Park explained. Mr. Kang uses this room frequently. You'll maintain it, organize it, and assist him if he needs anything while he's working here. That seems like a much better assignment than I had before. It is, Mrs. Park agreed. Which is why half the staff thinks you must be sleeping with him to get it. Tanya's eyes widened. What? I've barely spoken to him. Doesn't matter. In their minds, there's no other explanation for why he'd defend you so publicly and then give you such a cushy position. Mrs. Park shrugged. Let them talk. Better they think you're his mistress than know the truth. Which is that he's finally found someone who refuses to tolerate the intolerable, Mrs. Park said. And that scares him and intrigues him in equal measure. Before Tanya could respond, voices echoed from the main hall. Raised voices. Angry voices. That's Madame Kong, Mrs. Park said, her face going pale. She's early. Come on, we need to get you out of sight. But they were too late. As they emerged from the library corridor, they walked directly into the main hall where a scene was unfolding. Madame Kong Xianjia stood in the center of the marble floor like a queen surveying her kingdom. She was in her late 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, her hair pulled back severely from her face. Everything about her radiated power and control. Beside her stood Warren, her posture perfect, her expression carefully composed into one of wounded dignity. And facing them both was Mu Yil, his arms crossed, his face impassive. I don't care what your reasoning was, Madame Kang was saying, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. You humiliated your fiancé in front of the staff. You took the side of a servant over the woman who will bear your children. Do you understand how that looks? I understand perfectly, Mother, Mu Yil replied, his voice calm. It looks like I won't tolerate violence in my home, regardless of who commits it. Violence. Madame Kang's laugh was bitter. A slap is not violence, Mu Yil. It's discipline. It's maintaining order. Something you seem to have forgotten how to do. Tanya froze at the edge of the hall, wanting desperately to retreat, but knowing that movement would draw attention. Mrs. Park gripped her arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. Don't move, the housekeeper whispered. Don't even breathe. But it was too late. Warren's eyes had already found her, and a cold smile spread across her face. There she is, Warren said sweetly. The cause of all this trouble. Tell me, Miss Mbala, are you satisfied with what you've accomplished? Breaking up an engagement, turning a son against his mother, destroying household harmony. I haven't broken up anything, Tanya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. And I didn't start yesterday's altercation. Didn't start it? Warren's voice rose. You've been disrespectful since the day you arrived. Refusing to bow properly, speaking out of turn, giving me insolent looks. Enough, Mu Yil said quietly. But Madame Kang stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Tanya with an intensity that made her want to step back. So this is the woman who thinks she can strike her betters and face no consequences. Come here, girl. It wasn't a request. Tanya felt Mrs. Park's hand fall away from her arm, felt the older woman step back, putting distance between herself and what was about to happen. She was alone now, facing the true power of the Kang family. Tanya walked forward, her head high, stopping a respectful distance from Madame Kong. Closer, the older woman commanded. Tanya took 2 more steps. They were now face to face, and she could see the cold calculation in Madame Kang's eyes, the absolute certainty of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. "Do you know who I am?" Madame Kong asked softly. "Yes, ma'am. You're Madame Kong Xianjia, mother of Kong Muyil." "I am the woman who built this empire," Madame Kong corrected. "I am the woman who held it together when my husband was murdered. I am the woman who ensured my son would inherit power instead of chaos. And I am the woman who will not tolerate anyone, especially not a foreign servant, disrupting the carefully laid plans that will secure our family's future. With respect, ma'am, I have no interest in disrupting anything. I'm here to do my job." "Your job is to obey," Madame Kong snapped. "Your job is to understand your place. Your job is to disappear when your betters are speaking and to accept correction when it's given. Can you do that?" Tanya met her eyes steadily. "I can do my job with excellence and respect everyone in this household. But I can't accept physical abuse from anyone, regardless of their position." The silence that followed was suffocating. Somewhere behind her, Tanya heard someone gasp. Even Muyil looked surprised by her directness. Madame Kang's face hardened. "You dare." "Mother," Muyil interrupted, moving to stand between them. "This conversation is over. Miss Mbala has work to do, and we have family matters to discuss. In private. Don't dismiss me like I'm a child," Madame Kong hissed. "I came here because I heard my son had lost his mind, and I see now that the rumors were correct. You're protecting a servant over your own family, over your own future." "I'm protecting a principle," Muyil said, his voice harder now. "One that you taught me, actually. You always said that true power comes from loyalty, not fear. That people follow you because they believe in you, not because they're terrified of you. Or have you forgotten your own lessons? Don't you dare use my words against me." Madame Kang's composure cracked. "I taught you about loyalty to family, about putting the family's interests above your personal feelings. Not about defending servants who assault their superiors." "She was assaulted first," Muyil said calmly. "She defended herself. And if you can't see the difference, then perhaps we need to have a longer conversation about what kind of family we want to be." Warren stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Madame Kang's arm. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately, as Muyil suggested. Away from the staff." It was a calculated move, Tanya realized. Playing the peacemaker, the reasonable one, while reminding everyone that this drama was unfolding in front of an audience. Several staff members had indeed gathered at the edges of the hall, drawn by the raised voices. Madame Kong took a deep breath, visibly composing herself. "You're right. This is not a discussion for public consumption." She looked at Tanya one more time, her eyes cold. "You may go, Miss Mbala. For now." The threat in those last 2 words was unmistakable. Tanya bowed slightly, the minimum respect required, and turned to leave. As she passed Muyil, their eyes met briefly, and she saw something there, concern, perhaps, or warning. Then she was walking away, her legs steady despite the trembling in her hands. Mrs. Park caught up with her in the corridor. "Are you insane? Talking to Madame Kong like that? Do you have a death wish?" "I spoke respectfully," Tanya said. "You stood your ground. Against Madame Kong. Do you understand what you've just done?" "What I've always done," Tanya replied. "Refuse to make myself small for someone else's comfort." In the hall, Madame Kong waited until all the servants had been dismissed before turning to her son. "My office. Now." She swept toward the east wing, and after a moment's hesitation, both Muyil and Warren followed. The office had been Muyil's father's, and after his death, Madame Kang had claimed it as her own. It was a statement. She might not hold the official title, but she still held the real power. Once the door closed, Madame Kong rounded on her son. "Have you completely lost your mind?" "I've never been more clear-headed," Muyil replied, taking a seat in one of the chairs facing the desk. His casual posture was deliberate, a refusal to be intimidated. "You're protecting a maid. A foreign maid. Over your fiancé. Over your family. Over everything we've worked for." Madame King's voice shook with rage. "The CO family is already making inquiries. Daejong called me this morning, suggesting that perhaps this alliance was a mistake. Do you understand what that means?" "It means he's posturing," Muyil said calmly. "The COs need this alliance as much as we do. More, actually. Their connections in Seoul are valuable, but our control of Busan's ports is essential to their business. Daejong won't walk away over a domestic dispute." "A domestic dispute," Warren repeated, her voice tight. "Is that what you're calling it? I was assaulted in your home, and you're treating it like a minor inconvenience." "You assaulted someone first," Muyil said, looking at her directly. "Or are we just ignoring that part? She's a servant. She's a human being." "Oh, for God's sake." Madame Kong slammed her hand on the desk. "When did you become so soft? Your father would be ashamed." "My father," Muyil said, his voice dangerously quiet, "taught me that strength without honor is just brutality. He taught me that true leaders inspire loyalty, not fear. And he taught me that the measure of a person is how they treat those who can do nothing for them. So no, Mother, I don't think he'd be ashamed. I think he'd understand exactly what I'm doing." "You're romanticizing him," Madame Kong snapped. "Your father was pragmatic. He understood that sometimes you have to be cruel to maintain power. He was also murdered," Muyil said bluntly, "by people who feared him instead of respecting him. People who saw an opportunity and took it because they had no loyalty to him, only terror. Is that the legacy you want me to follow?" The words hung in the air like a grenade. Warren looked uncomfortable, shifting in her seat. Madame King's face had gone white, then red. "How dare you," she whispered. "How dare you use your father's death to justify this insanity?" "I'm not justifying anything," Muyil said, standing. "I'm explaining my reasoning. You asked why I defended Miss Vala. I'm telling you, because it was the right thing to do. Because in my house, under my authority, no one will be physically assaulted without consequences. Not staff, not family, not anyone. If you can't accept that, if Warren can't accept that, then we have a bigger problem than a slap." "The problem," Warren said, her voice shaking with suppressed emotion, "is that you're more concerned about a maid's feelings than your future wife's dignity." "Your dignity wasn't harmed by Tanya defending herself," Muyil said. "It was harmed by you striking her in the first place. You want respect? Earn it. Stop terrorizing the staff. Stop acting like cruelty is a virtue. Start behaving like the woman I agreed to marry, intelligent, strong, capable, instead of the tyrant you've become in my home." "The woman you agreed to marry," Warren repeated slowly. "Is that all I am? An agreement? A business transaction? Isn't that all I am to you?" Muyil countered. "You didn't choose me because you loved me. You chose me because your father told you to. Because this marriage means power and influence. So let's not pretend this is about wounded feelings. This is about control, and you're angry because for the first time since you moved into this house, someone refused to give it to you." Warren stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need air." She left before anyone could stop her, the door closing with a sharp click. Madame Kong watched her go, then turned back to her son. "You're making a terrible mistake," she said quietly. "Warren is proud, yes. Sometimes too proud. But she's also the key to expanding our influence into Seoul. Her family's connections, her father's political ties, we need that alliance, Muyil. We need it more than you realize." Then help me salvage it, Muyil said. Talk to Warren. Make her understand that she can't rule this household through fear. That she needs to earn the staff's respect, not demand it through violence. And the maid. What about her? She needs to go, Madame Kong said flatly. Even if everything you say is true, even if she was defending herself, her presence here now is a threat to your engagement. Warren will never forgive her. Every time she sees that woman's face, she'll remember being humiliated. The wound will fester, Muyil. It will poison everything. Then Warren needs to learn to live with her wounded pride, Muyil said. I won't fire someone for defending themselves. I won't punish someone for refusing to be a victim. If Warren can't handle that, then maybe she's not ready to be my wife. You're playing with fire. I've been playing with fire my entire life, Muyil said. That's what we do in this family. The question is whether we let it burn us or whether we learn to control it. He left his mother sitting at the desk, her face troubled. As he walked through the corridors, he found himself heading not toward his own quarters, but toward the library. When he entered, he found Tanya on a ladder, dusting the upper shelves. She turned at the sound of the door, nearly losing her balance. Muyil moved quickly, steadying the ladder. Careful, he said. Thank you, sir. She climbed down, her movements graceful despite her obvious tension. Did you need something from the library? I wanted to apologize, he said, for putting you in that situation. With my mother. You didn't put me anywhere, sir. I walked into it myself. You shouldn't have had to defend yourself. Not to her, not to anyone. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. This house, it's becoming something I don't recognize. Something I don't want it to be. Tanya studied him carefully. May I speak freely, sir? I told you, always. This house is exactly what you allow it to be, she said. You're the master here. What happens under this roof is your responsibility. If you don't like what you see, change it. It's not that simple. Isn't it? She met his eyes steadily. You have more power than anyone I've ever met. You could end this with a word. Fire me, if that's what it takes to keep peace with your fiancé. Send me away and all this drama disappears. I won't do that. Why not? The question was genuine, curious. Why are you willing to fight your mother, your fiancé, probably half your organization, over someone you barely know? Muyil was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. Because if I let you be punished for doing the right thing, then what kind of man am I? What kind of leader? What kind of person? He shook his head. My father used to say that you learn someone's true character by watching how they treat people who can't fight back. If I let Warren destroy you for defending yourself, what does that say about my character? It says you're pragmatic, Tanya said. It says you understand that one person isn't worth jeopardizing everything you've built. Maybe I'm tired of being pragmatic, he admitted. Maybe I'm tired of sacrificing what's right for what's expedient. Maybe. He stopped, seeming to catch himself. I should let you get back to work. But he didn't move, and neither did Tanya. They stood there in the quiet library, sunlight streaming through the windows, dust motes dancing in the air between them. Your mother thinks I should leave, Tanya said finally. She's probably right. My being here is causing problems. Real problems that could affect your future. Let me worry about my future, Muyil said. You focus on doing your job. Let me handle everything else. And if you can't handle it? If this gets worse? Then it gets worse, he said simply. But at least I'll know I stood up for what was right. After he left, Tanya stood in the library for a long time, staring at the closed door. She had come to Korea looking for work, for financial stability, for a chance to build a better future. She hadn't come looking for this, for conflict, for danger, for whatever this complicated thing was developing between her and the man who owned this house. She should leave. She knew that. Every instinct for self-preservation told her to pack her bags and disappear before things escalated further. Before Warren found a way to destroy her that Muyil couldn't prevent. Before she got more entangled in the dangerous web of mafia politics and family drama. But she didn't want to leave. For the first time in her life, she had found a place where standing up for herself mattered. Where someone with real power had looked at her and seen not a servant, not a foreigner, not someone to be used and discarded, but a person worth defending. She wasn't naive enough to mistake Muyil's protection for anything more than principle. He would have defended anyone in her situation. This wasn't about her specifically. It was about his values, his vision for what kind of leader he wanted to be. And yet, there had been something in his eyes when he studied her ladder. Something in his voice when he said he wouldn't fire her. Something that made her wonder if maybe, just maybe, this was about more than principle. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. That way lay disaster. Muyil was engaged. He was a crime lord. He lived in a world she couldn't begin to understand, full of violence and danger and moral compromises she had never had to consider. Getting emotionally involved with him would be the stupidest thing she could possibly do. Which is why she absolutely, definitely would not do it. She climbed back up the ladder and resumed dusting, trying not to think about the way his hand had felt on the ladder, steadying her. Trying not to remember the look in his eyes when he said always. Trying not to wonder what it would be like if things were different, if he were free, if she were someone who belonged in his world. Trying. And failing. That evening, Warren sat in her room, staring at the file her mother's assistant had compiled on Tanya Mbala. It was thicker than she expected, full of information that painted a picture of a woman far more interesting than Warren had given her credit for. Tanya had come from a middle-class family in Africa, had put herself through university while working 2 jobs, had graduated with honors in international business. She had come to Korea not out of desperation, but out of ambition, wanting to see the world, to challenge herself, to prove she could succeed anywhere. She had no family in Korea, no support network, no one who would miss her if she disappeared. That last part was useful. But there was more. Tanya sent money home every month, supporting a younger brother's education. She had dreams of starting her own business someday, of returning home with enough capital to create opportunities for others. She had volunteered at a local community center before taking the position at the Kang estate. She was, in short, exactly the kind of person who would garner sympathy if something bad happened to her. The kind of person whose disappearance would create questions. Warren closed the file, frustrated. Direct action was out. She couldn't simply make Tanya disappear without creating a scandal that would inevitably lead back to her. Muyil had made it clear he was watching, protecting, waiting for Warren to make a mistake. Fine. She wouldn't make a mistake. She would be subtle, patient. She would wait for the right moment, the right opportunity. And when it came, when she could move against Tanya without it obviously leading back to her, she would strike. But for now, she would play the role of the gracious fiancé who had forgiven and moved on. She would be sweet to the staff, respectful to Muyil, deferential to his mother. She would rebuild her image as the perfect future Mrs. Kang. And while everyone's guard was down, she would work behind the scenes to destroy the woman who had dared to strike her. Warren smiled at her reflection. She had learned long ago that patience was the ultimate weapon. Let Tanya think she had one. Let Muyil think his protection was enough. Let them all relax, grow comfortable, believe the crisis had passed. And then, when no one was expecting it, Warren would remind them all why people feared her in the first place. The days following Madam King's visit were strange and unsettling. Warren's behavior changed dramatically. She was polite to the staff, even warm sometimes. She asked about their families, remembered their names, smiled more. To an outsider, it would have looked like genuine transformation. But Tanya knew better. "She's planning something," Ji-won whispered one evening as they prepared for bed. "Everyone thinks she's changed, but I see the way she looks at you when she thinks no one's watching. It's like a cat watching a mouse." "Let her watch," Tanya said, though unease prickled at the back of her neck. "You should be careful. Maybe ask for a transfer to another household. And let her win? Is it winning if you're alive?" Ji-won asked seriously. "People who cross powerful people in this country, they don't always come out the other side intact, Tanya. Please, just think about it." Tanya did think about it. Late at night, when the house was quiet and she was alone with her thoughts, she considered her options. She could leave. She had enough saved to get by for a few months while she found new work. It would be the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But every time she decided to give notice, she would see Muyil in the library, working late into the night. They had developed a routine. She would bring him tea without being asked, and he would thank her with that small, tired smile. Sometimes they talked, brief conversations about books or current events or nothing in particular. Those conversations were dangerous. They made her feel seen, valued, respected in a way she had never experienced before. They made her want to stay, even though staying was foolish. One night, 2 weeks after the slap, she entered the library to find Muyil standing at the window, his shoulders tense. "Bad day?" she asked, setting down his tea. "Bad week," he corrected. "Bad month. Take your pick. Want to talk about it?" He turned, surprised. "Would you want to hear about it?" I asked, didn't I? He smiled slightly. "The politics of my world, they're complicated. And right now, they're getting more complicated. My engagement, my mother's expectations, the alliances I'm supposed to be building, it all feels like it's closing in." "So don't do it," Tanya said simply. "It's not that easy." "It never is," she agreed. "But nothing worth doing is easy. If you're miserable, if you're being forced into something that goes against who you are, what's the point of all this power? What's the point of being the boss if you can't make your own choices?" Muyil laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "You make it sound so simple." "I make it sound simple because it is," Tanya said. "Life is short, Mr. Kong. Too short to spend it living for other people's expectations. And what about responsibility? What about duty to family, to legacy? What about duty to yourself?" she countered. "What about responsibility to be happy, to live honestly, to not wake up one day and realize you've spent your whole life being who everyone else wanted you to be instead of who you actually are?" They stood there, the question hanging between them like a bridge or a chasm, depending on how you looked at it. "You're very wise for someone so young," Muyil said finally. "I'm not wise," Tanya replied. "I just know what it's like to have to fight for every scrap of dignity, every moment of peace, every chance to be myself. It gives you perspective." "Tell me something," he said, moving closer. "Why did you come to Korea?" "Really?" "Money, at first," she admitted. "Better wages than I could get at home. A chance to save, to help my family, to build something for my future. And now?" "Now," she considered the question. "Now I'm not sure. Everything's gotten complicated. Because of me. Because of a lot of things," she said. "But yes, partly because of you." Before either of them could say more, the library door opened. Warren stood in the doorway, her face carefully neutral. "Am I interrupting?" she asked sweetly. "No," Muyil said, stepping back from Tanya. "Miss Mbala was just bringing tea." "How thoughtful," Warren said, her eyes moving between them. "Miss Mbala, would you mind giving us a moment? I need to speak with my fiancé." Tanya bowed slightly and left, feeling Warren's eyes on her back the entire way. In the library, Warren waited until the door closed before speaking. "You spend a lot of time with her." "She works in the library." "I work in the library." "It's inevitable." "Is it?" Warren moved closer to him. Muyol, I want to apologize. For everything. For how I've behaved. For the incident with Miss Mbala. For making things difficult. I've been thinking a lot these past weeks, and I realize I haven't been the partner you deserve. Warren, please let me finish. She took his hand, her touch gentle. I know our engagement is arranged. I know we didn't choose each other out of love. But that doesn't mean we can't build something real, something good. I want to try, Muyol. I want to be better. I want to make this work. She was saying all the right things, looking at him with apparent sincerity. And Muyol wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that the alliance his family needed could also be a genuine partnership. But something held him back. Some instinct that whispered this was performance, not transformation. I appreciate that, he said carefully. And I want to make this work too. But Warren, that means both of us changing. It means treating people with respect, all people. It means building a household based on loyalty and mutual trust, not fear. I understand, she said. And I'm committed to that. Just help me. Be patient with me. I'm trying to unlearn a lifetime of lessons about power and control. It was exactly what he wanted to hear. And that's what made him suspicious. If you enjoyed this story so far, please hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Drop a comment below telling us what you think will happen between Tanya and Muyol. Will their connection grow despite the danger, or will Warren's plans tear them apart? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to like this video to help others discover this story. The next few weeks were a strange dance of tension and normalcy. Warren maintained her new, improved persona. She was gracious to the staff, respectful in her interactions, and publicly supportive of Muyol. To anyone watching, it seemed she had genuinely changed. But late at night, she met with her mother's assistant, planning and plotting. She learned Tanya's routine down to the minute. She discovered which staff members resented Tanya's special treatment, who could be manipulated, who could be used. She was building a case, slowly and methodically. Not against Tanya directly, that would be too obvious. But against the idea of Tanya, against the disruption her presence caused, against the way she had changed the dynamics of the household. One evening, a valuable piece of jewelry went missing from Warren's room. She reported it calmly to Muyol, without accusations or dramatics. These things happen, she said with a shrug. Perhaps it was misplaced. But 2 days later, an antique vase disappeared from the main hall. Then a painting from the gallery. The thefts were small enough to be concerning, but not catastrophic. And they all happened during times when Tanya was working in those areas. When the fourth item disappeared, a silver letter opener from Muyol's study, he called a household meeting. I'm not accusing anyone, he said, addressing the assembled staff. But these thefts need to stop. If anyone knows anything, if anyone has seen anything unusual, please come to me in confidence. The meeting ended without resolution, but Tanya felt the shift in the household. People looked at her differently now, whispered when she walked by. The few friends she had made among the staff began keeping their distance. Mrs. Park pulled her aside after the meeting. Where were you yesterday afternoon between 2 and 4? In the study, dusting. Why? That's when the letter opener went missing. Mrs. Park's face was troubled. Miss Mbala, I want to believe you, but you think I'm a thief? I think someone wants everyone to think you're a thief, Mrs. Park said bluntly. And they're doing a very good job of it. That night, Tanya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the walls closing in. This was how it would happen, she realized. Not with violence or direct confrontation, but with whispers and suspicion. Death by 1,000 cuts. By the time the fifth item disappeared, the household consensus had formed. Tanya Mbala was a thief, probably planning to steal from the family and flee back to Africa with her ill-gotten gains. When Muyil summoned her to his study, she knew what was coming. "Sit down," he said, his face unreadable. She sat, her hands folded in her lap, her spine straight. "5 items have gone missing in the past 3 weeks," he said without preamble. "All during times when you were working in or near those areas. All easily portable, easily sold. Do you have anything to say about this?" "I didn't take anything," Tanya said quietly. "You know I didn't." "Do I?" He leaned back in his chair. "Tell me, Miss Mbala. What do I actually know about you? You've been here less than 2 months. You could be anyone. You could be exactly what people are saying you are." The words hurt more than the slap had. "You're really asking me this? After everything?" "I have to ask," he said. "My mother is demanding an investigation. Warren is insisting we call the police. Half my staff thinks you're a criminal, and the other half thinks I'm being willfully blind. So yes, I'm asking. Did you take those items?" Tanya stood slowly. "No, sir. I did not. But I can see you're not sure you believe me. So I'll make this easy for you. I quit. Consider this my resignation, effective immediately. Sit down." "Why? So you can accuse me some more? So you can make me defend myself against lies?" She felt tears pricking at her eyes and hated herself for it. "I thought you were different. I thought you actually cared about truth, about justice. But you're just like everyone else. When it comes down to it, you believe what's convenient." "I said sit down," Muyil repeated, his voice harder now. Something in his tone made her pause. She sat, watching him carefully. "I don't believe you took those items," he said quietly. "Not for a second. But I needed to see your reaction. I needed to know if you would run or fight. This was a test?" "Everything is a test in my world," he said. "And you just passed. If you were guilty, you would have made excuses, tried to explain away the coincidences, maybe even cried and begged for mercy. Instead, you got angry. You stood up for yourself. You prepared to walk away rather than accept being falsely accused." Tanya felt her anger deflate, replaced by confusion. "Then why?" "Because I needed to be sure," he interrupted. "Because what I'm about to do next requires absolute certainty. And now I have it." He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Juntae, I need you to arrange something for tomorrow morning. A household meeting, mandatory attendance. And bring the security footage from the cameras I had installed last week. All of it." He hung up and looked at Tanya. "Someone has been systematically framing you. Someone very clever, very patient, who knows this house and its routines intimately. But what they didn't know is that after the first theft, I had hidden cameras installed throughout the house. Not in private spaces like bedrooms or bathrooms, but in all the common areas where the items went missing. You've known all along?" "I've suspected. Now I know. And tomorrow, everyone else will know too." The morning meeting was tense. Every staff member was present, as were Madam Kong, Warren, and Baek Juntae. The latter had set up a laptop connected to a large screen. Muyil stood before them all, his presence commanding attention. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about the recent thefts. Today, I'm going to clear up that speculation with facts." He nodded to Juntae, who started the first video. It showed Warren's bedroom from an angle that captured the doorway. The timestamp was from the day her jewelry went missing. In the video, Warren was alone in her room. She opened her jewelry box, removed a diamond bracelet, and placed it in her purse. Then she left the room. 3 hours later, she returned and called Muyil to report the theft. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Warren's face went white. "That's edited," she said quickly. "It's been manipulated. You can't trust." "Watch," Muyil said calmly. Juntae played the second video. This one showed the main hall where the vase had disappeared. The camera caught Warren looking around to ensure she was alone, then carefully taking the vase and wrapping it in cloth before carrying it away. Then the third video. The gallery. Warren removing the painting. The fourth. Warren in the study, taking the letter opener while Tanya was visible in the background, dusting with her back turned, completely unaware. By the time the fifth video played, showing Warren planting a silver candlestick in the cleaning supply closet near the staff quarters, the room was in chaos. Staff members were talking over each other, shock and outrage evident on every face. Enough. Madam King's voice cut through the noise. She stood, her face carved from stone, staring at Warren. Is this true? Did you stage these thefts? Warren's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Her carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and everyone could see the panic beneath. I was trying to protect this family, she finally stammered. That woman, she's a threat. She's changing everything, turning Muyil against his own family, against his future. I had to do something. So you decided to frame an innocent person? Muyil's voice was ice. You decided to destroy someone's reputation, possibly their entire future, because you felt threatened? She slapped me. Warren's composure finally shattered completely. She humiliated me in front of everyone, and you defended her. You took her side. You've been protecting her, spending time with her, treating her like she matters more than I do. She does matter, Muyil said quietly. She matters because she's a person, because she works hard, because she refuses to compromise her dignity. All the things you should matter for, but don't, because all you care about is power and control. I care about us. Warren was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I care about this family, this alliance, everything we're supposed to build together. And I watched you throw it all away for a maid who means nothing. She means nothing? Muyil stepped closer to Warren, his voice dangerous. Let me tell you what means nothing. This engagement means nothing. This alliance your father is so proud of means nothing. Because it's built on lies and cruelty and the assumption that I'm too weak to choose my own path. Muyil, Madam Kong warned. Think carefully about what you're saying. I've thought about nothing else for weeks, he said, turning to face his mother. You want to know the truth? I don't want this engagement. I never did. I agreed to it because it was expected, because it was practical, because I thought duty mattered more than happiness. But watching Warren these past weeks, seeing what she's capable of, realizing that this is the woman you want me to spend my life with. He shook his head. I can't do it. I won't. The room had gone silent. Even the staff had stopped whispering, everyone frozen in shock. Warren's face transformed from panic to fury. You're breaking our engagement? Over her? She pointed at Tanya. Over a servant? I'm breaking our engagement because of you, Muyil corrected. Because you try to destroy an innocent person to get what you want. Because you rule through fear and manipulation. Because I finally understand that marrying you would be the worst mistake of my life. Your father, Warren began. My father would be ashamed of me if I let this continue, Muyil interrupted. He would be ashamed that I considered binding myself to someone so cruel. Madam Kong, Warren turned desperately to Muyil's mother. Please, talk to him. Make him see reason. This is just a misunderstanding. I can explain. You've explained enough, Madam Kong said coldly. You've humiliated my family, jeopardized our alliances, and proven yourself unworthy of the Kang name. The engagement is over. Warren looked around the room wildly, searching for an ally, for anyone who would support her. But the staff members she had terrorized for months looked away. Juntae's expression was disgusted. Even the few who had seemed to support her before now kept their distance. You'll regret this, Warren said, her voice shaking. All of you. My father won't let this insult stand. The Seo family doesn't forgive, and we don't forget. Neither do the Kangs, Muyil said. Your father is welcome to try whatever he likes. But you need to leave this house. Now. Today. Fine, Warren spat. I don't want to stay in this place anyway. It's beneath me. You're all beneath me. Her eyes found Tanya. Especially you. You think you've won? You think he'll choose you now? You're nothing but a temporary fascination. A novelty. The moment he's bored, you'll be back to being exactly what you are, a servant. That's enough, Muyil said sharply. Juntae, please escort Miss Seo to her room. Help her pack. I want her off the property within the hour. Juntae moved forward, and after a moment's hesitation, Warren allowed herself to be led away. But she looked back once, her eyes meeting Tanya's across the room, and the hatred there was so intense it was almost physical. After she was gone, Madame Kong addressed the room. This meeting is over. Return to your duties. And remember, what happened here today stays within these walls. Anyone who speaks of this outside the household will answer to me personally. The staff dispersed quickly, leaving only Muyil, his mother, and Tanya in the room. Miss Mbala, Madame Kong said. A word, please. Tanya approached cautiously. The older woman studied her for a long moment. I owe you an apology, Madame Kong said finally. I misjudged you. I thought you were an opportunist, using my son's protection for your own gain. I was wrong. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me yet, Madame Kang's expression hardened. You may have been innocent of theft, but you're guilty of something else, disruption. Since you arrived, this household has been in constant chaos. My son has broken his engagement, alienated a powerful family, and put himself at considerable risk. All because of you. That's not fair, Muyil interjected. Tanya didn't. Let me finish, his mother said. Miss Mbala, I'm not blind. I see the way my son looks at you. I see the way you look at him. And I'm telling you now, it can't happen. Whatever you think might be possible between you, it isn't. Muyil is the head of one of the most powerful organizations in Korea. You're a foreign worker with a temporary visa. The world will never accept you together. His associates will never respect you. And his enemies will use you as a weakness to destroy him. Mother, I'm not finished. Madame Kang's voice rose. I have sacrificed everything for this family. I've made hard choices, terrible choices, to keep us strong and united. I won't watch my son throw away everything I've built because he's developed feelings for someone he can never truly be with. With respect, ma'am, Tanya said quietly, that's not your decision to make. It's not yours either, Madame Kong shot back. If you care about my son at all, if you have any genuine feeling for him beyond gratitude or infatuation, then you'll do the right thing. You'll leave. Before this goes any further. Before someone gets hurt. Someone already got hurt, Tanya said. I got hurt. I was slapped, terrorized, framed for crimes I didn't commit. And through all of that, your son was the only person who stood up for me. The only person who saw me as human. You're asking me to walk away from that. I'm asking you to think beyond yourself, Madame Kong said. To consider what your presence costs him. He broke his engagement for you. He alienated a powerful family. He's made himself vulnerable in ways he can't afford. Is that what you want? To be the weakness his enemies exploit. The words hit harder than Tanya wanted to admit. Because Madame Kang was right about one thing. She was a weakness. Every moment she stayed, every interaction she had with Muyil, she made him more vulnerable. I need to think, Tanya said finally. Think quickly, Madame Kong advised. The Seo family won't let this insult stand. They'll retaliate, and when they do, everyone close to my son will be in danger. Especially you. Madame Kong left, her footsteps echoing in the empty room. Tanya stood frozen, her mind racing. Don't listen to her, Muyil said, moving closer. She's trying to manipulate you, to make you afraid. She's not wrong though, is she? Tanya looked at him. I am a liability. My being here puts you at risk. I don't care about the risk. You should, Tanya said. You have responsibilities, people who depend on you. You can't afford to make decisions based on whatever this is between us. Whatever this is? Muyil repeated. Tanya, I think we both know what this is. Don't, she whispered. Please don't say it. Because if you say it, it becomes real, and if it's real, then I have to make a choice I'm not ready to make. What choice? Whether to stay and put you in danger or leave and break my own heart. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Muyil reached out, his hand hovering near her face, not quite touching. What if I told you I don't want you to leave? He said softly. What if I told you that these past weeks, watching you, talking to you, learning who you are, it's been the only real thing in my life? What if I told you that breaking that engagement wasn't just about Warren's cruelty, but about realizing I can't marry someone I don't love when I'm falling for someone else? Don't, Tanya said again, but her voice broke. You can't fall for me. I'm nobody. I'm temporary. You're extraordinary, he interrupted. You're brave and principled and genuine in a world full of lies and manipulation. You're everything I didn't know I needed. But I can't be what you need, she said desperately. Your mother is right. The world won't accept us. Your business, your family, your entire life is here, and I don't fit into any of it. Then we'll make you fit, Muyil said. Or we'll change what needs to be changed. Or we'll build something new. I don't have all the answers, Tanya. But I know I don't want to lose you. You barely know me. I know enough, he said. I know you're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen a man, not a title. I know you challenge me to be better. I know when you walk into a room, something in me settles, like I can finally breathe. Isn't that enough to try? Tanya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This is crazy. This is impossible. Most worthwhile things are, Muyil said with a small smile. He finally let his hand touch her face, his thumb gently wiping away her tears. Stay. Please. Stay and let's figure this out together. For a long moment, Tanya let herself imagine it. Staying here, building something with this complicated, honorable man. Finding a way to make it work despite all the obstacles, despite the danger, despite everything that made it impossible. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating thought she'd ever had. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. But Muyil, if this puts you in danger, if my being here costs you something you can't afford to lose, then we'll face it together, he said. No more running. No more hiding. We face whatever comes together. He pulled her into an embrace, and Tanya let herself sink into it, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. Outside the window, the sun was setting over Busan, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It felt like an ending and a beginning all at once. In her room, Warren packed her belongings with shaking hands, tears of rage and humiliation streaming down her face. Juntae stood in the doorway, watching impassively. This isn't over, she said, shoving clothes into a suitcase. Tell your cousin that. This isn't over. Miss Seo, if I could offer some advice, Juntae said carefully. Let it go. Move on. Continuing this will only bring more pain. Pain? Warren laughed bitterly. I've been humiliated in front of everyone. My engagement is broken. My reputation is ruined. And you think I should just let it go? I think you should learn from it, Juntae said. You tried to destroy someone and it backfired. Take the lesson and walk away while you still can. I don't need lessons from hired muscle, Warren snapped. I need revenge. And I'll get it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I will make them pay. Both of them. Juntae said nothing, just watched as she finished packing. When she was done, he escorted her to the waiting car. As she slid into the back seat, she looked up at the estate one last time. "Tell them I'll be back," she said to Juntae. "And when I come back, they'll wish they'd never crossed me." The car drove away, and Juntae watched it disappear down the long driveway. Then he pulled out his phone and called Muyeo. "She's gone, but boss, she's not done. You need to be careful." "I know," Muyeo replied. "I'm counting on it." "You want her to come back?" "I want to be ready when she does," Muyeo corrected. "The Seo family won't let this slide. They'll retaliate, probably through business channels first, then more directly if that doesn't work. We need to prepare." "And Miss Mbala?" "She stays," Muyeo said firmly. "And we protect her. Whatever it takes." After hanging up, Juntae stood in the driveway for a long moment. His cousin was playing a dangerous game, allowing personal feelings to influence business decisions. In their world, that kind of weakness could be fatal. But Juntae had seen the way Muyeo looked at Tanya, and he'd seen the way she looked back. It wasn't just attraction or infatuation. It was something deeper, something real. Maybe he thought that was worth fighting for. Maybe that was worth the risk. Or maybe they were all about to learn a very hard lesson about the price of love in a world built on power and violence. Only time would tell. The following weeks brought changes to the estate. The atmosphere shifted from fear to something cautiously hopeful. Without Warren's presence, the staff began to relax. People smiled more, talked more freely, moved through the house without constantly looking over their shoulders. Tanya's new position was formalized. She was no longer just a maid, but Muyeol's personal assistant for household matters, a role that put her in daily contact with him and elevated her status among the staff. Some resented it, whispering about favoritism and impropriety. But most were simply grateful that someone kind had influence with the master of the house. Mrs. Park became Tanya's unlikely ally, teaching her the intricacies of running a household of this size and complexity. "You need to understand something," the older woman said one afternoon as they reviewed the weekly supply orders. "The staff is watching you. They're waiting to see if you'll become another Warren, drunk on the little bit of power you've been given." "I won't," Tanya promised. "I know," Mrs. Park said with a small smile. "You're different. But you still need to be careful. Not everyone is happy about your promotion. Some think you've gotten too much too fast. Others are jealous of your relationship with Mr. King." "There is no relationship," Tanya said quickly. "We're friends. We respect each other. That's all." Mrs. Park gave her a knowing look. "If you say so, dear. But might I suggest you work on your poker face? Every time he walks into a room, you light up like sunrise." Tanya felt her cheeks heat. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to anyone with eyes," Mrs. Park said gently. "Which means eventually it will become a problem. His world, it's not kind to outsiders, Miss Mbala. Especially outsiders who have the boss's heart. He doesn't." "He broke his engagement for you," Mrs. Park interrupted. "He publicly humiliated a powerful family to defend you. He restructured your entire position to keep you close. If that's not love, it's the closest thing to it." Tanya didn't know what to say to that. Because Mrs. Park was right and Tanya knew it. Something was growing between her and Muyeo, something that went far beyond employer and employee, beyond gratitude or friendship. But acknowledging it felt dangerous. Like standing at the edge of a cliff and looking down. That evening, Muyeo called her to study. She found him standing at his window, his usual position when he was troubled. "You wanted to see me?" she asked. "I had a call from the Seo family today," he said without turning. "They're demanding compensation for the broken engagement. Money, business concessions, territory in Busan. The list is extensive. Will you give it to them?" "No," he said simply. "I won't be extorted for doing the right thing. But refusing will have consequences. They'll move against me, against my business, possibly against people close to me. People like me, Tanya said quietly. Yes. He finally turned to face her. I've increased security around you. You'll have a bodyguard whenever you leave the estate. I've also started looking into getting you permanent residency status in Korea, so your visa can't be used as leverage against you. Muyil, you can't. I can and I will, he interrupted. Tanya, I'm not going to let them hurt you because of me. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you ever again. That's not a promise you can keep, she said. You're not invincible. Neither am I. Bad things happen, no matter how much we try to prevent them. Then I'll deal with those things when they happen, he said. But I won't live in fear of what might be. And I won't push you away because it's safer. He moved closer, and Tanya's breath caught. They'd been dancing around this for weeks, this pull between them that grew stronger every day. But neither had been brave enough to act on it. Until now. Tanya, he said softly, I need to know something. These feelings I have, this connection between us, is it just me? Or do you feel it too? Her heart hammered. This was the moment. The choice. She could lie, could deny what was so obviously true, could protect them both from the complications that honesty would bring. Or she could be brave. I feel it, she whispered. Every day, every moment we're together, I feel it. And it terrifies me. Because of who I am? Because of what it means, she said. Because loving you feels like jumping off a cliff without knowing if there's water at the bottom. Loving me, he repeated, his eyes searching hers. Tanya realized what she'd said, and panic fluttered in her chest. But she didn't take it back. Couldn't take it back. Yes, she said. Loving you. Which is probably the stupidest thing I've ever admitted, but there it is. Muyil's face transformed, a smile spreading across his features that was so genuine, so unguarded, that it took her breath away. Thank God, he said. Because I've been falling for you since the day you slapped Warren. Maybe even before that. And I was terrified you didn't feel the same. How could I not? Tanya asked. You're honorable and kind and strong in all the ways that actually matter. You see people, really see them. You make me feel valuable, not because of what I can do for you, but because of who I am. How could I not fall for that? He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle. May I kiss you? Instead of answering, Tanya closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid the moment might shatter. Then it deepened, became something more urgent, more real. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. This is complicated, Tanya said. Yes, it's probably going to cause more problems than we can imagine. Probably. We're from completely different worlds. We'll build a new one, Muyil said. Together. And standing there in his study, with the lights of Busan twinkling in the darkness outside, Tanya let herself believe it. Let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, love could be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. It was naive. It was foolish. It was the bravest thing she'd ever done. Outside, in the shadows beyond the estate walls, someone watched and waited. Taking photos. Documenting. Building a case. Warren had promised revenge, and the Seo family always kept their promises. The war was just beginning. The next morning, photos appeared online. Muyil and Tanya in the study, visible through the window, their embrace unmistakable. The accompanying article was vicious. Mafia boss dumps Korean fiancé for African maid. The subheadline read, King Muyil's betrayal of his own kind shocks Busan's elite. The reaction was immediate and devastating. By noon, Muyil's business partners were calling, expressing concerns. By evening, 2 major deals had fallen through. By the next morning, protests had gathered outside the Kang estate, signs demanding that Tanya be deported. Inside, Tanya stared at the articles on her phone, her hands shaking. Don't read that garbage, Jiwon said, trying to take the phone away. It's all lies. Is it? Tanya asked. I am African. I was a maid. He did break his engagement. The only lie is that it's a betrayal. You need to talk to Mr. Kong. But before Tanya could respond, Mrs. Park appeared at the door. Miss Mbala. The study. Now. Tanya's stomach dropped. She followed Mrs. Park through corridors that seemed longer than usual, past staff members who wouldn't meet her eyes. When she reached the study, she found not just Muyil, but his mother and Juntae. Sit, Madame Kong commanded. Tanya sat, keeping her spine straight despite the fear churning in her gut. You've seen the articles, Madame Kong said. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am. Then you understand the position we're in. The Seo family has weaponized your relationship with my son. They're destroying his reputation, sabotaging his business, turning public opinion against him. And it's working. Mother Muyil warned. No, let her speak, Tanya said quietly. I want to hear it. Madame Kong leaned forward. You have 3 choices, Miss Mbala. First, you can leave Korea immediately. We'll provide you with generous compensation and help you start over somewhere else. Muyil will release a statement saying the relationship was a misunderstanding, that you were never anything more than an employee. His reputation will recover, the business relationships will be repaired, and life will go on. And the second choice? Tanya asked, though she could guess. You stay, but you and Muyil maintain complete public distance. No relationship, no contact beyond professional necessity. The rumors will eventually die down if there's no fuel to feed them. And the third. Madame Kang's expression hardened. You fight. You and Muyil go public with your relationship. Damn the consequences. You face down the Seo family, the public backlash, the business losses, and everything else that comes with it. But understand, Miss Mbala, if you choose this path, you'll be declaring war. Not just on the Seos, but on everyone who believes people like you and my son shouldn't be together. Tanya looked at Muyil. He hadn't spoken yet, but his face was troubled. What do you want me to do? She asked him directly. I want you to choose what's right for you, he said. Not what's right for me, or for my family, or for the business. What do you want, Tanya? It was the question she'd been avoiding. Because honestly, what she wanted felt selfish. What she wanted felt impossible. I want to fight, she said finally. I want to stay. I want to build something real with you, regardless of what anyone thinks. But Muyil, I can't ask you to sacrifice everything for me. I can't be the reason your empire crumbles. You're not the reason, he said firmly. The Seos are doing this, not you. Bigotry is doing this, not you. And if my empire can't survive me choosing love over politics, then maybe it doesn't deserve to survive. That's naive, Madame Kong snapped. This empire has lasted 3 generations. It's bigger than one man's feelings. Then maybe it's time for it to change, Muyil said. Maybe it's time for us to be something different. Something better. And if you lose everything, his mother pressed. If your allies abandon you, if your enemies move against you, if the life you've built collapses, will this woman be worth it? Muyil looked at Tanya, and she saw everything in his eyes. Determination, fear, love, hope. Yes, he said simply. She will. Tanya felt tears streaming down her face. You're insane. You're throwing away everything. I'm choosing what matters, he interrupted. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what actually matters. Juntae, Madame Kong said sharply, talk some sense into him. But Juntae surprised everyone by smiling. Sorry, Auntie. But I think he's right. I've watched Muyil his whole life, doing what was expected, being who he was supposed to be. And I've never seen him happy. Not really. Until her. He nodded at Tanya. So yeah, maybe it's crazy. Maybe it'll blow up in our faces. But at least he'll be living his own life. Madame Kong stood abruptly. You're all fools. But you're my family, and I won't abandon you, even when you're making the worst decision of your lives. She looked at Tanya. If you're going to do this, then do it right. No hiding, no apologizing, no backing down. If you're going to be with my son, then be with him proudly. Don't give our enemies the satisfaction of seeing you cower. She left, and the room felt lighter in her absence. Well, Juntae said cheerfully, that went better than expected. She didn't disown anyone or threaten to kill anyone. That's basically approval in Kang family language. Despite everything, Tanya laughed. It was a slightly hysterical sound, but it was real. Muyil pulled her into his arms. We're going to get through this, he promised. Together. You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, she said against his chest. I know. The COs won't stop. They'll keep attacking, keep pushing, keep trying to break us apart. Let them try. Muyil. Tanya, he pulled back to look at her. I've spent my entire life being afraid. Afraid of disappointing my family, afraid of showing weakness, afraid of wanting something just for myself. I'm done being afraid. Whatever comes, we'll face it. But I'm not letting you go. Not now, not ever. If you're still watching, thank you for sticking with this incredible journey. This story of love, courage, and transformation is far from over. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. What do you think will happen next? Will Tanya and Muyil's love survive the storm ahead? Drop your predictions in the comments below and don't forget to like this video. Your support means everything. The public announcement came 3 days later. Muyil stood before cameras, Tanya beside him, and faced the world with his truth. My name is Kang Muyil, he began, his voice steady. And I'm in love with Tanya Mbala. I know this is controversial. I know many of you will disapprove. But I'm done hiding who I am and what I want because it makes others uncomfortable. Tanya is brilliant, brave, and principled. She challenges me to be better. She makes me want to build something worth building. And yes, she's African. Yes, she came to Korea as a domestic worker. But those things don't define her worth any more than my family name defines mine. We're just two people who found each other and decided that love matters more than convenience. If you have a problem with that, if you think our relationship is somehow wrong or shameful, then that's your burden to carry, not ours. We're moving forward together and we're not apologizing for it. The questions from reporters came fast and furious, but Muyil fielded them with grace. Tanya stood beside him, her hand in his, her head high, refusing to be diminished. The reaction was predictable. Half of Korea seemed outraged. The other half was cautiously supportive. Social media exploded with opinions from every angle. But something unexpected happened too. Messages started pouring in from people in interracial relationships, from those who had been forced to hide their love, from anyone who had ever been told they didn't deserve happiness because they didn't fit someone else's expectations. You're giving us hope, one message read. Thank you for being brave enough to show us it's possible. My girlfriend is Filipino, and my family disowned me for it, another said. Seeing you stand up makes me feel less alone. The messages kept coming, hundreds of them, thousands, creating a groundswell of support that began to counterbalance the hatred. Muyil's business took hits. Several partners backed out of deals. Some associates stopped returning his calls. But others, surprisingly, stepped forward. Younger business leaders, those tired of the old ways, saw an opportunity to align themselves with someone willing to challenge tradition. The world's changing, one of his new partners said during a meeting. People like you, who aren't afraid to be themselves, who don't bow to outdated prejudices, you're the future. We want to be part of that. Slowly, carefully, Muyil began rebuilding his business around a new philosophy, loyalty based on respect, power tempered with integrity, tradition balanced with progress. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, threats, moments when it seemed like everything would collapse. But through it all, Tanya was there. And that made the difference. 6 months after the slap that started everything, the Kang estate had transformed completely. The atmosphere of fear that had permeated every corner was gone, replaced by something warmer, more human. Staff members smiled, joked, treated each other with kindness. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. Tanya stood in the garden one evening, watching the sun set over Busan. Muyil found her there as he always did. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. "How much has changed?" she said. 6 months ago, I was just trying to survive. Now what am I? "You're the woman I love," he said simply. "The woman who changed everything. The woman who taught me that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you're terrified." Tanya turned in his arms. "I'm still scared sometimes. Of losing this. Of losing you." "Me too," he admitted. "But being scared means we have something worth losing. And that's better than the alternative. Which is never having found each other at all," he said. "Never knowing what this feels like." She kissed him, soft and sweet, and in that moment, everything else fell away. The threats, the challenges, the uncertain future, none of it mattered as much as this. Two people who had found each other against all odds and decided to hold on, no matter what. In Seoul, Sia Warren watched the news coverage of Muyil and Tanya's relationship with burning eyes. She had tried everything to destroy them: public humiliation, business sabotage, social pressure. Nothing had worked. If anything, they seemed stronger than ever. Her father had finally called off the campaign, deciding it was wasting resources better spent elsewhere. "Let them have their little romance," he'd said dismissively. "It won't last. These things never do. And when it falls apart, we'll be there to pick up the pieces." But Warren couldn't let it go. Watching them together, seeing the way Muyil looked at Tanya with genuine love, something he'd never shown her, it burned like acid in her veins. She had moved on, officially. Started dating a wealthy businessman her father approved of, appeared at society events with a smile, rebuilt her reputation as best she could. But late at night, alone in her apartment, she still plotted, still planned. Still waited for the perfect moment. Because people like Warren didn't forgive. And they never forgot. But for now, in Busan, in the garden of the Kang estate, Tanya and Muyil were building something new. Something that had started with a slap and grown into a love that refused to be intimidated by tradition, prejudice, or fear. Madame Kong watched them from her window, her expression unreadable. She had opposed this relationship from the start, had warned them both about the consequences. And she'd been right about many things: the business losses, the social backlash, the complications. But she'd been wrong about one thing. Watching her son now, truly happy for the first time in his adult life, she realized that maybe some things were worth the cost. Maybe love, real love, was worth fighting for, even when the odds seemed impossible. She wouldn't say that out loud, of course. She had a reputation to maintain. But privately, in the quiet of her own thoughts, she was glad her son had been brave enough to choose happiness over duty, even if she'd never admit it to anyone else. The months continued to pass, and slowly, the storm began to settle. Not disappear. There would always be those who disapproved, who whispered behind closed doors, who saw their relationship as a betrayal of something they couldn't quite articulate. But the immediate crisis faded. Tanya's visa situation was resolved. Muyil used his considerable influence to secure her permanent residency, then began the process for something more. She enrolled in business courses, preparing for the day when she could be more than just his partner in love, but his partner in business as well. The staff continued to evolve. Mrs. Park was promoted to estate manager, with real authority and a salary to match. Ji-won became Tanya's assistant, finally free from the fear that had defined her early years at the estate. New policies were implemented, better working conditions, fair wages, zero tolerance for abuse of any kind. Word spread. The Kong estate became known as a good place to work, and applications flooded in. People wanted to be part of something different, something better. 1 year after the slap, Mu-yeol threw a party. Not for business associates or family obligations, but for everyone who had stood by them through the difficult times. The staff, the new business partners, the unexpected allies who had emerged from the chaos. Tanya wore a stunning dress that Mu-yeol had commissioned specifically for her, in deep blue that complemented her skin tone perfectly. As she moved through the crowd, greeting guests, she felt like she belonged. Not because she had changed to fit Mu-yeol's world, but because together, they had changed the world to fit them both. "You look happy," Mrs. Park said, appearing at her elbow with champagne. "I am," Tanya admitted. "Terrifyingly happy." "Terrifying how?" "Because I keep waiting for something to go wrong. For this to be taken away. For reality to crash down and remind me that people like me don't get fairy tale endings." "Who says this is a fairy tale?" Mrs. Park asked. "Fairy tales are easy. This is real. You and Mr. Kong, you fought for every moment of happiness. You've earned it. Stop waiting for it to be taken away and just live it." Tanya raised her glass. "To living it." "To living it," Mrs. Park echoed. As the evening progressed, Mu-yeol found Tanya on the terrace, looking out over the city lights of Busan. "Hiding from your own party?" she asked with a smile. Taking a moment to appreciate it, he corrected, moving to stand beside her. "A year ago, I was engaged to someone I didn't love, running an organization based on fear, living a life that felt like someone else's. Now," he gestured to the party behind them, to the sounds of genuine laughter and joy. "Now I have this. I have you. I have a chance to build something that actually matters." "It hasn't been easy," Tanya reminded him. "The best things never are." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Tanya's breath caught. "Mu-yeol." "Before you panic," he said quickly, "this isn't what you think." "Not yet, anyway. I know we're still figuring things out, still building our foundation. But I wanted you to have this." He opened the box to reveal a pendant, a simple but elegant design featuring two hands clasped together, one darker, one lighter, made from intertwined gold and silver. "It's beautiful," Tanya whispered. "I had it made by a local artist," Mu-yeol explained. "The gold and silver represent our different backgrounds, how we're different but complementary. The clasped hands represent our choice to hold on to each other, no matter what. And the fact that they're intertwined, inseparable, that's what we've become. Two people from different worlds who built something new together." He took the pendant from the box and fastened it around her neck. Tanya touched it gently, feeling the weight of it, the meaning behind it. "When the time is right," Mu-yeol said softly, "when we're both ready, I'll ask you the question that goes with a different kind of ring. But for now, I wanted you to have this. A promise that I'm here, that I'm committed, that I'm not going anywhere." Tanya turned to face him, tears in her eyes. "You know I love you, right? Even though I don't say it enough, even though I'm still learning how to accept that this is real, you know." "I know," he said, pulling her close. "Just like you know I love you. That I choose you every single day over everything else." They stood there, holding each other as the party continued inside, as Busan sparkled below them, as their future spread out uncertain and challenging and full of possibility. Inside the party, Baek Juntae watched them through the window and smiled. His cousin had found something rare, genuine happiness. And watching Muyil with Tanya, seeing how they complemented each other, how they made each other better, it gave Juntae hope. Hope that maybe the old ways didn't have to be the only ways. That maybe their world, violent and complicated as it was, could still make room for love. For growth. For change. Madame Kang stood beside him, following his gaze. They're good together, she admitted grudgingly. I was wrong about her. She's stronger than I gave her credit for. She slapped Warren, Juntae said with a grin. In this family, that automatically earns respect. Despite herself, Madame Kang laughed. True. Though let's not make that our standard metric for evaluating potential family members. Potential family members? Juntae raised an eyebrow. So you've accepted it? The relationship. I've accepted that my son is his own man, making his own choices, Madame Kang said carefully. And that those choices, while unconventional, seem to be working for him. Is she who I would have chosen? No. But do I see that she makes him happy, that she challenges him to be better, that she's loyal and brave and everything he needs? Yes. So I'm choosing to focus on that. That's very progressive of you, Auntie. Don't push it, she warned, but there was no heat in it. I'm still getting used to the idea. But Tanya has proven herself, time and again. She stood her ground when most would have run. She fought for her dignity, for her place here, for my son. That deserves acknowledgement, if not outright approval. I think you like her, Juntae teased. I think she's acceptable, Madame Kang corrected. There's a difference. But as she watched Tanya and Muyil on the terrace, the older woman's expression softened. Maybe, just maybe, her son had found something worth more than any business alliance or political marriage could ever provide. Maybe he'd found a true partner. The party eventually wound down. Guests departed with genuine smiles and promises to stay in touch. The staff cleaned up efficiently, their movements relaxed and unhurried. This was a household that no longer operated on fear, and it showed in every interaction. Late that night, Tanya and Muyil sat in the library, their sanctuary. He was going through paperwork while she read, both comfortable in the shared silence. I've been thinking, Tanya said suddenly. About what I want to do. Long term, I mean. She set down her book. I'm grateful for the position here, for everything you've done for me. But I don't want to be dependent on you, on your protection, on your influence. I want to build something of my own. Tell me, Muyil said, setting aside his papers to give her his full attention. Remember how I told you I wanted to start a business back home? Help create opportunities for others. She leaned forward, excitement evident in her voice. What if I did that here instead? Started a company that helps foreign workers navigate Korean systems, that protects them from exploitation, that gives them resources and support. There are so many people like me who come here looking for opportunity and end up in situations like I was in, with people like Warren. What if I could change that? Muyil's face lit up. That's brilliant. And it aligns with what I've been working on too, shifting our business model toward legitimate enterprises, toward things that actually help people. We could partner on it. I could provide startup capital, connections, legitimacy. You could provide the vision, the understanding of what workers actually need. I don't want it to seem like you're just giving me a vanity project, Tanya said carefully. It wouldn't be, Muyil assured her. It would be a genuine business venture, with you as the founder and CEO. I'd be an investor and advisor, but it would be your company, your vision. And honestly, I think it could be incredibly successful. There's a real need for these services, and you have the credibility to provide them. Tanya felt excitement bubbling up. I'd need to do research, create a business plan, figure out logistics. So do it, Muyil said simply. You have everything you need. Take your time, do it right, and when you're ready to launch, I'll be right there supporting you. They talked late into the night, planning and dreaming and building a future that felt both exciting and possible. This was what partnership looked like, Tanya realized. Not one person dominating while the other submitted, but two people working together, supporting each other's dreams, helping each other grow. This was what love looked like when it was real. In Seoul, Warren stared at her phone, reading articles about the party at the Kang estate. Pictures of Mu-yeol and Tanya together, looking happy and in love. Comments from attendees about what a wonderful evening it had been, how transformed the household was, how inspiring their relationship was. She threw her phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Her new relationship wasn't working out. The businessman her father had pushed her toward was boring and self-absorbed. He treated her like an accessory, not a partner. And every time she saw him, she was reminded that Mu-yeol had never looked at her the way he looked at Tanya. Her father's words echoed in her mind, "Let it go. Move on. You're better than this obsession." But she couldn't move on. Couldn't let go. The humiliation still burned, the rejection still stung. And watching them succeed while she struggled felt like salt in a wound that refused to heal. She picked up her laptop and opened a private browser. There were people in Korea, in Busan specifically, who specialized in making problems disappear. People who didn't ask questions if the price was right. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. One message. One transaction. One permanent solution to the problem that was Tanya Mbala. It would be easy. Untraceable, if done right. And then Mu-yeol would finally understand the consequences of his choices. Would finally feel the pain he'd inflicted on her. But even as she thought it, even as she imagined the satisfaction it would bring, something held her back. Some last shred of conscience, or perhaps just self-preservation. Because if anything happened to Tanya now, after all the public drama, Mu-yeol would know. He would come for her. And despite everything, despite her hatred and resentment, she wasn't sure she was ready to face his wrath. Not yet, anyway. She closed the laptop and poured herself a drink instead. Maybe her father was right. Maybe it was time to let go, to move on, to build her own life instead of obsessing over the one she'd lost. But old habits died hard. And Warren's capacity for holding grudges was legendary. For now, she would wait. But she wouldn't forget. And someday, when the opportunity presented itself, when she could act without consequences. Someday, there would be a reckoning. 2 years after the slap that changed everything, Tanya stood in her own office building in downtown Busan. The sign on the door read Bridge International Services in Korean and English. Inside, a team of 15 people worked to help foreign workers navigate Korean systems, protect them from exploitation, and connect them with legitimate opportunities. The business had grown faster than anyone expected. Word spread among immigrant communities that here was someone who understood their struggles, who fought for their rights, who genuinely cared about their well-being. Within 6 months, they had more clients than they could handle. Within a year, they'd expanded to 3 additional locations across Korea. Tanya had become something of a celebrity in immigrant circles, speaking at conferences, advising government officials on worker protection policies, building bridges between Korean society and the foreign workers who contributed so much to it. And through it all, Mu-yeol was there. Not controlling, not overshadowing, but supporting. He had kept his promise. He'd provided startup capital and connections, but the company was entirely hers. She made the decisions, set the direction, built the team. Their relationship had deepened and evolved. They had moved past the initial intensity into something more stable and profound. They knew each other now, really knew each other, the good parts and the flawed parts and everything in between. And they had chosen each other anyway. Penny for your thoughts? Mu-yeol appeared in her office doorway, wearing a casual suit, his expression warm. "Just reflecting," Tanya said. "2 years ago, I was scrubbing floors and getting slapped. Now I'm running a company and changing lives. It's surreal sometimes." "You did this," Muyil said, moving to stand beside her at the window. "Not me, not luck, not circumstances. You. Your vision, your courage, your refusal to accept that things can't be better. This is all you." "We did this," Tanya corrected. "Together." He smiled and took her hand. "Speaking of together, I have something to ask you." Tanya's heart skipped. "Muyil." "Hear me out first," he said, his expression turning serious. 2 years ago, I gave you a promise. A commitment that I was here, that I was choosing you, that I wasn't going anywhere. And I've kept that promise. Through business challenges, through social pressure, through everything that's tried to tear us apart, I've kept it. "I know," Tanya whispered. "And you've kept your promise too," he continued. "You've stayed, you've fought, you've built something incredible. You've shown me what partnership really means, what love really looks like. And I don't want to spend another day without making this official." He pulled out a ring box, and this time, Tanya didn't stop him. "Tanya Bala," he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning ring that somehow perfectly captured both of their styles. "Will you marry me? Will you officially become my partner, not just in love but in life? Will you help me continue building a world where love matters more than tradition, where courage is valued over conformity, where two people from different worlds can come together and create something beautiful?" Tears streamed down Tanya's face. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed as the sun set over Busan, as her employees cheered from the main office where they'd apparently been watching, as their future unfurled before them full of possibility and promise. It wouldn't always be easy. They both knew that. There would still be challenges, still be people who disapproved, still be obstacles to overcome. But they would face it together. As partners. As equals. As two people who had learned that the best things in life were worth fighting for. At the Kang estate, Madame Kong received the news of the engagement with characteristic composure. She called Muyil into her office, and when he arrived, she was standing at the window, her back to him. "I heard about the proposal," she said without turning. "And?" Muyil asked cautiously. "And I suppose congratulations are in order." She finally turned to face him. "You've proven me wrong, Muyil. I didn't think your relationship would last. I thought the pressures would be too much, that the differences would drive you apart. But you've built something real. Something lasting. Thank you, Mother." "Don't thank me yet," she said, but her tone was softer than usual. "Marriage will bring new challenges. A wedding between the heir to a crime family and a foreign businesswoman? It will be a spectacle. It will attract attention, both positive and negative. Are you prepared for that?" "We are," Muyil said confidently. "We've faced worse." Madame Kong studied her son for a long moment. "You've changed these past 2 years. Become more yourself, somehow. More settled in your own skin. That's her influence, I suppose." "It is," Muyil admitted. "She's made me braver. Made me question things I'd always accepted. Made me believe that I can build something better than what came before." "Your father would be proud," Madame Kong said quietly. "Of the man you've become. Of the choices you've made. Of the courage it took to follow your heart instead of just following orders." It was the closest she'd ever come to fully approving of his relationship with Tanya, and Muyil treasured it. "Will you give us your blessing?" he asked. "Officially?" Madame Kong was quiet for a long moment. Then she moved to her desk, pulled out an ornate box, and opened it to reveal a stunning jade bracelet. "This belonged to your grandmother," she said. "She wore it on her wedding day, as did I on mine. It's tradition for the groom's mother to give it to the bride as a symbol of welcome into the family." She held it out to him. Give this to Tanya. Tell her that while she may not have been the daughter-in-law I originally envisioned, she has proven herself worthy of the king name. Tell her that she has my respect, my support, and yes, my blessing." Muyil took the bracelet, emotion tightening his throat. "Thank you, mother." "Just make her happy," Madame Kong said. "And let her make you happy in return. That's all that really matters." The wedding took place 6 months later. It was a carefully orchestrated blend of Korean tradition and African influences, a celebration that honored both of their backgrounds. The guest list was eclectic. Crime lords sat beside immigrant rights activists, traditional Korean families mixed with Tanya's friends from the international community. Old allies and new partners came together to witness something unprecedented. Tanya wore a stunning hanbok in rich colors, with African fabrics incorporated into the design. Muyil wore traditional Korean wedding attire with subtle nods to Tanya's heritage in the details. The ceremony itself was a fusion, honoring multiple traditions, creating something new from their combined histories. When they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. "I promise to honor you," Muyil said, his voice strong and clear, not because of where you come from or what you've achieved, but because of who you are. "I promise to stand beside you, never above you or below you, but as your equal partner in all things. I promise to fight for us, for this life we're building, for the world we want to create where love matters more than tradition. And I promise to never stop choosing you every single day for the rest of my life." Tanya's voice shook with emotion as she spoke her own vows. "I promise to challenge you, to push you to be your best self, to never let you settle for less than what you deserve. I promise to build with you, not just a marriage, but a legacy of courage and kindness. I promise to respect your past while helping shape your future. And I promise that no matter what storms come, no matter what obstacles we face, I will stand with you. Always." When the officiant pronounced them married, the applause was thunderous. And when they kissed, sealing their commitment, it felt like more than just a wedding. It felt like a revolution. The reception was joyous and chaotic in the best possible way. Different cultures mingled. People who would normally never interact found common ground, and for one perfect evening, all the divisions and prejudices and complications faded away, leaving only celebration. Mrs. Park cornered Tanya during the reception, tears streaming down her face. "Do you remember what I told you that first day after you slapped Miss Seo? I said you were brave but stupid." "I remember," Tanya said with a laugh. "I was wrong," Mrs. Park said. "You weren't stupid. You were just braver than the rest of us could comprehend. You saw what needed to change, and you changed it. You stood up when we were all bowing down. And look at what you've built. Look at what you've become." She pulled Tanya into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, dear girl. So very proud." Ji-won appeared next, her own eyes red from crying. "You saved me," she said simply. "Watching you stand up to Warren, watching you refuse to be broken, it gave me courage too. I quit accepting abuse. I started demanding respect. I became someone I'm actually proud of. And it's all because you showed me it was possible." As the evening progressed, Tanya found herself surrounded by people whose lives she'd touched, workers she'd helped through her company, staff members from the estate who had flourished in the new environment, even some of Muyil's business associates who admitted she'd changed their perspectives on power and leadership. Late in the evening, as the party began to wind down, Muyil found Tanya on a balcony overlooking the venue, similar to how he'd found her during that party 2 years ago. "Tired?" he asked, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. "Overwhelmed," she corrected, leaning back against him. "In the best way possible. Today was perfect, Muyil. Everything I dreamed of and more." "It's only the beginning," he said. "We have our whole lives ahead of us. Building businesses, changing systems, creating a family maybe, if that's something you want. I want everything with you, Tanya said, turning in his arms. A life, a legacy, children who grow up knowing that love is stronger than prejudice, that courage can change the world, that who you are matters more than where you came from. Then that's what we'll build, Muyil promised. Together. Far away in Seoul, Warren saw pictures of the wedding on social media. She stared at them for a long time, Muyil and Tanya radiant with happiness, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about them, building a life that looked nothing like the cold, strategic marriage Warren had envisioned for herself. And for the first time in 2 years, she felt something other than rage or resentment. She felt tired. Tired of holding on to hatred. Tired of plotting revenge that never materialized. Tired of letting Muyil and Tanya live rent-free in her head while she wasted her own life on bitterness. Maybe it was time to truly move on. Not just pretend to move on while secretly seething, but actually let it go. Actually build her own happiness instead of trying to destroy theirs. She closed the browser and looked at her reflection in the darkened screen. Who had she become? Someone consumed by jealousy and spite, someone who had lost herself in pursuit of revenge that wouldn't even feel good if she achieved it. Her phone rang. Her current boyfriend, calling to confirm dinner plans. Change of plans, Warren said when she answered. I think we should talk. Really talk. About what I want, what you want, whether this relationship is actually going anywhere or if we're both just going through the motions. It was a small step, but it was a step forward toward building her own life instead of obsessing over the one she'd lost. Maybe, just maybe, that slap 2 years ago had been the wake-up call she needed. Not immediately, not directly, but eventually. Sometimes it took time to learn the lesson. Sometimes you had to exhaust all other options before you finally chose growth over revenge. Warren wasn't sure she'd ever fully forgive Tanya for that slap, or Muyil for his choices. But maybe forgiveness wasn't the point. Maybe the point was just to move forward, to build something of her own, to stop letting her past define her future. It was worth trying at least. Back in Busan, as Tanya and Muyil's wedding reception finally ended and they prepared to leave for their honeymoon, Mrs. Park gathered the estate staff for a final toast. 2 years ago, she said, raising her glass, a young woman walked into this house and changed everything. She didn't mean to. She just refused to accept things as they were. She stood up when she could have bowed down. She fought when she could have fled. And in doing so, she showed all of us what courage really looks like. To Tanya, someone shouted. To Tanya and Muyil, another added. To courage, Mrs. Park corrected. To dignity. To love that refuses to be diminished. To change that starts with one person standing up and saying enough. That's what we're celebrating tonight. Not just a wedding, but a transformation. This house, this family, this entire household, we're all better because someone was brave enough to slap back. The staff erupted in laughter and cheers, raising their glasses. And somewhere in that celebration, in that joy and solidarity and hope for the future, was the real victory. Not that Tanya had won Muyil. Not that good had triumphed over evil. But that fear had been replaced by respect, that cruelty had been replaced by kindness, that one person's courage had inspired a whole community to demand better. That was worth celebrating. That was worth everything. As Muyil and Tanya drove away from the reception, heading toward their future, Tanya touched the jade bracelet on her wrist, the pendant around her neck, and the ring on her finger. 3 pieces of jewelry, 3 symbols of acceptance and love and commitment. No regrets? Muyil asked, glancing at her. Only that I didn't slap her harder, Tanya joked. Muyil laughed, the sound warm and genuine. You know, That slap really did change everything. If you hadn't stood up to her that day, if you just accepted it and moved on, we wouldn't be here, Tanya finished. I wouldn't have caught your attention. You wouldn't have defended me. None of this would have happened. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? He asked. If you'd never met Warren, or if she'd never slapped you, or if I'd been traveling that day and hadn't witnessed it? Sometimes, Tanya admitted. But then I remember something my mother used to say. The best things in life happen when we're brave enough to defend our dignity. I was just defending my dignity that day. Everything else, it was a bonus. Some bonus, Muyil said. You got a husband, a business, a family, and a revolution out of one slap. I got a life, Tanya corrected. A real life where I don't have to make myself small for anyone's comfort. Where I'm valued for who I am, not what I can do for someone else. Where love is possible, even when the world says it shouldn't be. That's what I got from standing up that day. That's what we built together. As they drove into the night, Busan's lights sparkling behind them and their future stretching ahead, they both knew the truth. The slap had been just the beginning. The real work had been everything that came after. The courage to keep standing when it would have been easier to run. The commitment to build something better instead of just accepting what was. The love that grew not in spite of the obstacles, but because they had faced them together. That was the real story. Not about a slap or a broken engagement or a mafia romance, but about two people who had found each other against all odds and decided that dignity mattered more than convenience, that love was worth fighting for, and that sometimes the best revenge against cruelty wasn't more cruelty. It was building something so beautiful that it made the past irrelevant. And that's exactly what they did. Years later, when people asked Tanya about her journey from maid to businesswoman to Mrs. Kang Muyil, she always told the truth. It started with refusing to accept being hit. Everything else flowed from that one moment of standing up for herself. It wasn't about being special or brave or having some grand plan, she would say. It was just about knowing my worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. That's something everyone can do. That's something everyone should do. Because when we stand up for ourselves, we don't just change our own lives. We change everything around us. We give other people permission to be brave too. And she was right. The ripple effects of that one slap continued long after the initial impact faded. The workers who found better treatment because of Bridge International Services. The household staff who learned they didn't have to accept abuse. The young couples in intercultural relationships who saw Muyil and Tanya and thought, maybe it is possible. The business leaders who began to question whether the old ways were really the best ways. One slap. One moment of courage. One refusal to be a victim. And everything changed. That's the power of standing up. That's the power of saying no to injustice, even when it's terrifying. That's the power of believing that you deserve dignity, respect, and love no matter what anyone else says. Tanya learned that lesson the hard way in a mansion in Busan where fear had ruled for too long. But once learned, it transformed not just her life, but everyone around her. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Epilogue. 5 years after the slap, Tanya sat in her Busan office, now head of a company with branches in 7 countries. She was reviewing applications for their new scholarship program when her assistant knocked. Mrs. Kong, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? A Miss Seo Warren. Tanya's heart skipped. She hadn't seen Warren since the day she'd left the estate, 5 years and a lifetime ago. What could she possibly want now? Send her in, Tanya said, steeling herself. Warren entered, and Tanya was struck by how different she looked. Still beautiful, still elegant, but softer somehow. The hard edges had been worn away, leaving something more human behind. Thank you for seeing me, Warren said. her voice quiet. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, Tanya admitted. What do you want, Warren? To apologize, Warren said simply. For everything. For how I treated you. For the things I did. For the person I was. She took a deep breath. I've spent the past 5 years in therapy, working on myself, trying to understand why I was so cruel. And I've come to realize that it wasn't about you at all. It was about my own insecurities, my own fears, my own emptiness. You were just a convenient target. That doesn't excuse it, Tanya said. I know, Warren agreed. Nothing excuses it. But I hope maybe it helps explain it. And I hope you can forgive me. Not for my sake, but for yours. Because holding on to anger is exhausting and you deserve peace. Tanya studied the woman before her, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agendas. But all she saw was genuine remorse. Growth. Change. I forgave you a long time ago, Tanya said finally. Not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace. But Warren, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what you did was okay. It just means I'm not letting it poison my life anymore. I understand, Warren said. And I'm grateful. I don't expect us to be friends. I don't even expect you to think of me kindly. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, that I've changed, that I'm trying to be better. Then I wish you well, Tanya said sincerely. I hope you find your happiness, Warren. I hope you build a life you're proud of. And I hope you treat people better than you treated me. I am, Warren said. I'm engaged now, actually. To someone I genuinely love, someone who loves me back. And I work with at-risk youth, helping them understand that cruelty doesn't make you strong, it just makes you alone. I'm trying to make amends, I suppose, for all the harm I caused. That's good, Tanya said. Really good. We all deserve second chances. Warren nodded, turning to leave. But at the door, she paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad you slapped me back that day. I'm glad you didn't let me break you. Because watching you succeed, watching you build this incredible life, it showed me that there was another way.